into seamlessly blending gameplay with the surrounding
The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. It almost feels insulting to pick up one of the most celebrated RPGs ever made for $3.99. Sure, the combat feels a little floaty sometimes, and your horse will absolutely spawn on top of a farmhouse roof at least once, but ignoring the main story just to travel across the continent aggressively challenging bartenders to a card game is an experience entirely its own. Most players accidentally sink 80 hours just clearing question marks off the map before finishing the first act. Getting a 100-hour dark fantasy epic at a 90% discount is the easiest purchasing decision you'll make all year. Mass Effect Legendary Edition. Paying under $5 for 3 massive sci-fi RPGs packed into one launcher is practically theft. The real magic here isn't just the shooting, it's the stress of knowing a single dialogue choice in the first game might get your favorite sniper killed 40 hours later in the third. It takes the entire trilogy and smooths out the notoriously clunky Mako driving sections from 2007. Throwing $4.79 at a 150-hour space opera where your terrible decisions carry over across 3 entire campaigns is an absurd amount of entertainment for the price of a fancy donut. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. EA finally figured out how to make lightsabers actually feel dangerous again. This isn't a mindless hack and slash. Treating a squad of stormtroopers like bowling pins will get you completely wrecked if you ignore the parry timing. Finding all the weirdly bright-colored ponchos hidden in crates is a bizarre cosmetic choice, but the intense lightsaber duels totally carry the experience. For $3.99, getting a genuinely solid, heavily cinematic Sekiro-light action game set in a beautifully realized galaxy feels like catching a pricing error. Grab it before somebody at EA notices. Batman Arkham Knight. People love complaining about how often this forces you to use the Batmobile as a tank, but ramming through Gotham's destructible architecture at 90 miles an hour never actually gets old. Visually, it still embarrasses most modern releases despite being almost a decade old. Nailing a flawless 50-hit combo against a crowd of thugs by bouncing around the room like a heavily armored pinball is pure dopamine. Seeing the price drop down to $3.99 makes it the perfect excuse to finally clear the streets of Gotham, even if the Riddler trophies will slowly drive you insane. Titanfall 2. The movement physics in this shooter are so aggressively smooth that playing literally any other FPS afterward feels like walking through wet cement. The campaign is criminally short, but it contains an entire time travel mechanic shoved into a single mission that completely alters how you approach combat and platforming. Plus, building a genuine emotional attachment to a sarcastic mechanical death machine wasn't on anyone's bingo card. Grabbing this masterpiece for $4.49 is a no-brainer just to experience a level of fluid, high-speed gunplay that developers have been trying and failing to copy for years. Mortal Kombat 11. Fighting games are usually tough to recommend to casual players, but the cinematic story mode here plays out like a massive, big-budget summer blockbuster full of ridiculous time travel nonsense. The sheer amount of customization is wild. Swapping out individual pieces of gear and tweaking fighting styles gives it a weirdly satisfying grind. The unlock system in the crypt can feel heavily gated at times, but dropping $4.99 to casually shatter your friends' spines on a Friday night is an extremely solid return on investment. Dragon Age Inquisition. BioWare went slightly overboard making the starting area so massive that millions of players never actually left the hinterlands. Yes, the side quests often feel like playing a single-player MMO, gathering bear hids and closing random rifts, but the core party banter and the tactical depth of pausing combat to perfectly line up a devastating combo are incredibly satisfying. For a measly $3.99, you are getting an easy 100 hours of dense world-building and political fantasy drama, where deciding who sits on a throne actually changes the map.
Tell me about Sloane Kelly.
Mass Effect Andromeda Deluxe Edition. The internet had a field day roasting the facial animations at launch, and honestly, some conversations still look a bit stiff. But however, the jetpack mobility completely transformed the combat loop into something incredibly frantic and vertical. Zipping around a battlefield, tossing enemies into the air with biotics and detonating them with a tech combo is arguably the best combat the series has ever seen. Seeing the deluxe package sitting at $3.19 is wild. At that price, ignoring the internet's old grudges and just enjoying the fantastic exploration mechanics is a massive win. Battlefield 2042. Let's be entirely honest, the launch of this shooter was a legendary disaster. Yet after years of heavy patches and massive overhauls, the chaotic 128-player sandbox actually delivers those ridiculous only-in-Battlefield moments again. Jumping out of a jet, firing a rocket launcher at a helicopter, and landing on top of a skyscraper while a massive tornado rips through the map is pure adrenaline. Spending $2.99, a 95% discount for absolute multiplayer anarchy completely erases any risk of buyer's remorse. It's cheaper than renting a movie and infinitely more explosive. RoboCop Rogue City. Modern shooters are all about sliding and wall running, which makes stomping around like a walking tank incredibly refreshing. You aren't taking cover, you are the cover. There's a decent amount of Eurojank here with slightly robotic voice acting and stiff animations, but grabbing a guy by the throat and throwing him out a window feels flawless. Snagging a recent highly praised love letter to 80s action cinema for $3.99 is the exact kind of bizarre Steam sale pricing anomaly that makes scanning the store pages totally worth it. Zombie Army 4 Dead War. Take the brutally satisfying X-ray kill cam from Sniper Elite and apply it to endless waves of the undead. Watching a bullet travel across the map in slow motion to shatter a zombie's jaw is a twisted kind of stress relief that just doesn't get old. The campaign gets beautifully chaotic if you drag a few friends in, though playing solo can eventually feel a little repetitive. Seeing the price knocked down to $4.99 turns it into the perfect low-stakes weekend co-op shooter, where nobody has to take anything seriously. Super Mega Baseball 4. The big heads and cartoon graphics completely mask what is quietly one of the tightest, most statistically deep sports simulations on the market. The pitching and hitting mechanics operate on a surprisingly punishing skill curve that demands absolute precision. Hearing the deafening crack of the bat when you perfectly time a fastball over the bleachers is ridiculously satisfying. Sports games rarely offer this level of mechanical depth without drowning you in microtransactions. Paying $5.99 for a baseball game that actually respects your time and skill level is a massive home run. Assetto Corsa. The base vanilla game is a solid, incredibly strict driving simulator with an extremely bland menu system. But the secret sauce here is the modding community. Downloading a few free mods suddenly transforms this into a photorealistic street racing game where you can weave through traffic on a rainy Japanese highway at 200 miles an hour. It practically requires a steering wheel to play properly, and the initial setup is a massive headache. But grabbing the foundation for the most expansive driving sandbox ever created for $4.99 is an absolute steal. Battlefield 5. The historical accuracy might be completely out the window, but the raw gunplay and movement mechanics are arguably the tightest in the franchise. Crouching through the mud while tanks level the buildings around you showcases some of the most terrifyingly immersive sound design in gaming. Calling in a V1 rocket and hearing the engine abruptly cut out seconds before wiping half the enemy team off an objective is pure adrenaline. Spending $2.49, a massive World War II shooter that still looks better than games releasing today, is just hilariously cheap. Borderlands 3. Okay, technically this one breaks our $5 rule by exactly 99 cents, but the sheer volume of content makes up for it. The main story villains are aggressively annoying, and the dialogue will actively make you cringe. But the actual shooting mechanics, the sliding, and the completely unhinged weapon generation system are absolutely top tier. Finding a shotgun that shoots exploding cheeseburgers or a sniper rifle that insults you when you miss completely saves the experience. Getting dozens of hours of arguably the best looter-shooter combat around for $5.99 easily justifies breaking the budget. Which of these is making it into your shopping cart first? Drop a comment below and subscribe to the Game Scout for more zero-regret gaming recommendations.